With me in the studio is the former political editor and columnist at The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh. Trevor, we invited you in this evening to talk about your long career. You've just retired after 6 decades in journalism. What a massive story. Do you wish you were still there in the Sun newsroom reporting on this kind of thing?
Well, it does whet the taste buds a little, I have to say. I retired and I said that I was the same age as Joe Biden, and I thought it was about time that both of us left the building, and I'm very pleased to see that he's followed my advice. I think he's been a disaster as president, particularly in recent months, but probably from the outset. And a new disaster is about to loom in the shape of Kamala Harris if she takes his position. It just beggars belief that knowing that with a man as frail as he is and the age he is, that she was picked to be a heartbeat away from the presidency the moment she had the job. And as your last two correspondents, I think Seb Gorka, without the language, hit the nail on the head. She was a token politician because she certainly isn't a vice president. She isn't qualified for the job, and she certainly isn't qualified for the job as president of the United States and leader of the free world. Indeed.
Do you think that Joe Biden was ever fit enough to be president? I mean, he was a reasonably capable vice president under Barack Obama. That was a long time ago. But, I mean, do you think in 2020 it was the wrong choice on the part of the Democratic Party to put him forward?
I do. I think it was a desperate choice, and it was impossible for them, apparently, to find anyone else at that point to fill the boots. But this is a man, as one of your correspondents has already mentioned, who's had 2 brain aneurysms, which effectively weakens the chances of the brain permanently staying fit and active into later life. And he is now in later life. And the idea of him serving a second term as president in a very, very demanding role. I mean, the idea at my age that I would even go back to being political editor is beyond me. When he's making major decisions that affect the future of the free world, every few minutes of the working day, while at the same time occasionally taking a nap or a long weekend away from it, it is an astonishing situation that the United States has landed the Western democracies in.
Have the US media misled the American public and the world about the state of Joe Biden's cognitive health?
They've done it simply because of the hatred they've drummed up against Donald Trump. So almost anything is better than Donald Trump, and if necessary, you have to put a rod up his back and hold him in position, if necessary, to show that he's still functioning. But I think that has bounced back against him very badly now. He is demonstrably incapable of holding that job, and has been for at least the last few months. I mean, the images of him at the G7 summit in Italy, with him turning and looking at an empty field, that was the beginning of the end, surely, long before the debate. But in any event, long before any of these events took place, he was clearly not up to the
Well, I'll be tackling this in my Take at 10 at the top of the hour. It won't be nearly as good as any of your columns for The Sun, but I'll give it my best shot. And I'm going to suggest that he was very lucky in 2020 because we were mid-pandemic, and therefore the excuse for Joe Biden was he couldn't campaign because of the virus, because of COVID-19. He earned the nickname Basement Joe, and that was critical because the American public were not able to see just how decrepit this man actually was.
Yes, and as I say, if it weren't for the fact that the contempt for Donald Trump as a human being, let alone as a prospective president for a second term, if it weren't for that, the public, the press and the media generally would have been probing much more deeply into the qualifications of Joe Biden for this job. And I think that, in fact, the Democratic Party is culpable in a cover-up here. More than this is a criminal offence, in my view, although it probably doesn't count as a federal case. But this is the leadership of the free world at stake, and you're allowing a person who is grotesquely and obviously incompetent for the job.
It's a fraud, isn't it? A fraud on the American public, and it matters to Sun readers, and it matters to my viewers and listeners at GB News, because the leader of America is the leader of the free world, and if there isn't somebody compos mentis in post in the White House, it's a problem for all of us.
It is. It's a matter for every person who is in what we describe as the free world, the democratic Western alliance, and I think that you know, now to go from a man who is clearly incapable to a woman who is clearly not competent, I think this is an appalling indictment of the United States in action. And I'm not saying that as a fan of Donald Trump either. I think this is the choice between the two men is, again, an astonishing situation that you would find yourself in the 21st century international politics.
Of course, you had a very long and successful collaboration with the media entrepreneur, media proprietor Rupert Murdoch, who is US-based. What would he make of this debacle, this pantomime that is US politics?
I haven't spoken to him, but I think he'd be as shocked as anybody by this. I mean, after all, he's 93 and fully compos mentis, and
is he still an honorary chairman of one of the largest media companies in the world?
Well, he is, and he runs it. Well, he doesn't run it as much as he did. He's stepped back a bit. But, I mean, he knows exactly what is going on in his company, which is a giant organisation still to this day. And I think he would be appalled by the spectacle. And I think that he would already have been appalled by the side of Joe Biden looking so doddery and inarticulate in his approach to interviews.
Now, we've got a statement from Sir Keir Starmer, so stay with us, Trevor Kavanagh, if you can. That is the former political editor of The Sun newspaper, former political columnist as well, Trevor Kavanagh. Sir Keir Starmer has tweeted the following on the social media platform X. He has said, "I respect President Biden's decision, and I look forward to us working together during the remainder of his presidency. I know that, as he has done throughout his remarkable career, President Biden will have made his decision based on what he believes is in the best interests of the American people." Now, Trevor, I want your reaction to what the Prime Minister, I was nearly going to say Leader of the Opposition, but he is now Prime Minister. It's been about two weeks and a couple of days that he's been in post. Sir Keir Starmer is our new Prime Minister. Your reaction to those words, it sounds to me like the political establishment on the left are circling the wagons here.
Well, I think that, to be fair to Keir Starmer in this, and I'm not always ready to be fair to Keir Starmer, he has no alternative but to put the best possible gloss on the departure of the President of the United States, whoever that incumbent may be. So that is what you'd expect from them. But I think that if he were honest, and I'm sure he would be if asked, he would also reflect on Biden's reputation as president over the 4 years in office. And we've seen the hasty retreat from Afghanistan. We've seen economic policies which are inflationary, which are increasing mass immigration, and which are building up huge levels of debt, which are going to have to be paid one day. And all of these are heading for a forecast by the experts of an economic crash sometime down the road. So, I mean, he hasn't been a great success as president. Not when you get underneath the skin of it. Yes, the economy is booming, but at a huge price.